During my sophomore year in high school, I was unfortunately involved in a school shooting. It happened during lunchtime, and I will never forget the chaos that unfolded in front of me. Right before the bell rang, I heard what sounded like someone slamming lockers as hard as they could. The noise echoing through the halls, and before anyone could think, a kid ran down the hall screaming, "He has a gun!" Now mind you, it was close to the end of the year, so sadly a lot of us thought it was a messed up senior prank. The reason I say this is because, over the past few months we had kids apparently posting on Facebook that they were going to shoot up the school. Therefore we had police officers in our classrooms, guarding us non-stop throughout the second semester. So when it actually happened, we didn't know if it was real or fake. Our security guard, who was previously a sniper in the military, ran down the hallway to see what was happening. Not even a minute later he comes running back telling us to run, and we did. Kids were jumping over tables. They were jumping over each other, and teachers were trying to pull kids into their classrooms. All hell broke loose the moment we realized this meant life or death. And all I could think about was, where's my sister? She had left for the bathroom moments before the first shots rang out. I remember not knowing what to do. Do I find her, or do I hide because the gunman was coming right for me? So I ran, as fast as I could, up the stairs and into my fourth period class. The teacher had sent a student out to see what was going on, and I rushed us both inside, telling him to lock the door. I remember everyone was staring at me, like, what is going on? Are you okay? And that's when the principal got on the intercom, and I will never forget what he said.
"This is a code red. Hide your students. I repeat, this is not a drill. Hide your fucking students."
I didn't even have to say a word. The senior class I ran into took action. They barricaded the door with desks and chairs after pulling in as many students as they could. The teacher told us to turn off all of our phone sounds, but to text our parents. When I did, my mom so happened to be right around the corner from the school. She raced over despite me telling her it wasn't safe. I felt like I could have gotten my mom killed that day, and I still regret it, though she remained safe. A lot after that is a blur. I remember my sister texting me that she was safe, but the gunman was trying to get into their classroom. I remember hearing the SWAT team clearing the hallways and hearing on one of their radios that there was multiple subjects, but none could be found. I remember seeing on multiple Snapchat stories, teachers next to doors, ready to take action. Some had scissors, others had bats, and another showed students taking off their shoes, ready to attack anyone who entered without permission. Though being slightly wholesome, a school of people should never have to defend themselves against angry classmates with guns. That was something that should have never happened, especially on a day our guard was down. Long story short, we were in lockdown from 1:45 p.m. to 10 p.m. that night. The shooters were never found, as far as I know, and nobody was fatally injured. Thank God. Walking out, though, to see food and papers scattering the hallways was rough. We had to have our hands up in the air as we left the school, and before going outside we were all patted down to make sure we didn't have weapons. I remember my parents hugging me harder than ever before, and just being happy we all walked out to see another day. I dropped out of high school shortly after that, and moved back to my hometown 5 states away, where I lived with my brother for a bit until I got my own place, and that's when I met Devin. He was like 3 years older than me. I didn't realize at the time, but he was actually the older brother of my first grade crush. But there we were. He was pretty good friends with my brother and would hang out when we'd have kickbacks. Can't say he was a bad guy from what I saw, and he never had beef with anyone. Super laid-back stoner type guy. He was really cool, until we all got drunk one night, and it slipped that he almost shot up his high school. Now, everyone there pretty much knew this about him, but played it off as, well, he didn't actually do it, so. Even my brother. I was disgusted. When I told them what happened to me, they dropped him from the friend group pretty fast. It's just sad that it took me telling them I was actually involved in one to no longer be friends with him. Like people, you shouldn't have been friends with him to begin with. Anyway, so I moved again and no longer talked to any of those friends, including my brother, and that's something I'm not sorry for. It's been almost 10 years and I'm slowly moving on. I just wish the trend of validating other people's bad behavior would stop. It's not a game, and if you ever feel the need to take these drastic actions, please don't. It's not worth ruining your life and others. You have a chance to make things right, so please do so. Okay, so I had just finished reading someone else's story about how their school almost got shot up, and then met the guy who almost carried it out years later. It reminded me of when my high school almost became a statistic as well, on 2 separate occasions. Wild, I know. The police didn't take it seriously the first time around. Why? I do not know. But I'll give a little backstory. I kinda want to censor his name, but don't. But for the sake of it, let's just call him Robert. So back in high school, a lot of kids walked to and from school, and about a handful of us had the same walking routes. I remember walking home and this scrawny white kid comes up to me and starts talking. Nothing bad, just simple shit. But back then, I was really reserved, and didn't want anyone talking to me, so I just endured it until he went his own way. I think that week, he instantly got comfortable with me and would sometimes wait for me so we could walk. I vividly recall one time we were walking home and he starts going on about this kid's TV show he wanted to make, starring some clown called Pogo or something along those lines. He wanted that clown to do a lot of deranged and sick things to people. Mind you, he wanted this to be a kid's show. I remember thinking, okay, wow, that's kind of fucked, but maybe he's going through shit that led him to find comfort, something like that. I didn't want to tell him that his idea was a little frightening, even to me, someone who loved horror movies and the like, so instead I said, wow, that's neat. Once you get out there, I'll watch it. Trying to be that support system he most likely didn't have. I remember telling my friends about him, and one of them was like, Robert, that weird kid with the trench coat? I agreed that was him, and I didn't understand the reaction because he seemed like a decent person that just needed someone to talk to while walking home. But then I started hearing more and more things about this kid, like how he had an unbelievable amount of rage for the LGBTQ community and always made that clear to an acquaintance of mine, and how everyone also thought that Robert was going to be a school shooter. Little did everyone know, he was planning to make that a reality. There was one time he had asked me to hang out with him and go thrift shopping, and I agreed. At the time, I'm not sure why I did. I don't know if it's because I felt intimidated by him as time went on and I kept hearing the rumors. But I steadily agreed, and also made it clear that if he's showing any romantic interest, I am currently dating someone else. Although I could already tell it was getting to that point, I wanted to make it clear the moment he asked to hang out so that he doesn't have it planted in his mind that this was a date disguised as a hangout. Fast forward to the day we hang out. I was a little annoyed because I had to bring my youngest sister with us, but I'm also grateful I did. So now we're walking around our little town's downtown area, talking, grabbing snacks here and there when we decide to head into the antique shop. Me and my sister is looking around. I tell her she can get any toy, and Robert is off looking at God knows what. After about 15-20 minutes, we meet back at the register to check out, and I notice he bought a gun. At that second, I didn't know it was just a BB gun, until the clerk said, "Let's wrap this up so that people around in this town don't get the wrong idea." But little did we know, this was just the start of it. In that moment as we finished up in the shop, I told myself this will be the first and last time I hang out with him, because it creeped me out, and I wasn't sure of his motive, had it just been me and him. Now on to the next year. It's 2017 now, and I hear more and more shit about this kid and his ongoing hatred for things like mental health. I'll never forget when he pissed me and my friend off when he sat with us at lunch and went on a rant about how people with depression shouldn't have it when they're not fighting for survival. Basically saying that if you've got a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and food in your belly, there's absolutely no reason for you to be depressed. Me and her both told him off because little does he know, even if you've got all that, depression can be genetic and other shit happens that leads to that mental illness. Not gonna lie, I think seeing his only friend argue back to him pissed him off even more. But one thing for certain is that I'll never forget when my mom told me I was staying home because they had a bomb threat. And guess who was behind it? You guessed it, Robert was. Because he was a minor at the time, The police decided to place him in juvie, I think it was, or some hospital. But it couldn't have been for long because that following fall, we got our school shooting threat from him. This time, he had an accomplice who thought it was all a joke until Robert was ready to act it out. The most shocking thing I remember hearing that he had made a kill list of everyone he hated and planned to murder. The principal was at the top, and my acquaintance turned friend was also on the list. At that point, I remember thinking, I'm glad I somewhat befriended him, was nice to him because I could have ended up on that list for whatever reason. I don't remember if he was arrested or taken back into juvie. I just know that if that other kid hadn't gone to the authorities that week, me and so many of my classmates would have been traumatized, or dead. But anyway, fast forward to 2019 and this son of a bitch had the audacity to reach out to me and try to apologize and have small talk. I don't think I've blocked someone so fast before. Like, why are you reaching out to me? Why are you leaving this unnerving and unsettling feeling in me like you did back in high school? Not to mention the anxiety I would get from it if he decided to insert himself into my life. So yeah, that's my story. And nowadays, I just joke about it, although I shouldn't. I don't know what he does now, but fuck that kid. The morning sun streamed through the high windows of Lincoln High, casting elongated shadows that danced across the empty corridors. It was the last day of school, and the air was thick with the anticipation of freedom. I walked the familiar route to my first period, my footsteps echoing in the quiet, a solitary drumbeat marking the end of an era. As I settled into my seat, the classroom hummed with a subdued excitement. Friends passed yearbooks back and forth, their pages filling with farewells and promises to stay in touch. Teachers delivered their lectures with a distracted air, their thoughts already adrift on waves of summer plans. A pang of nostalgia hit me. These walls had been my world for 4 years, and now I was about to leave them behind. Suddenly the intercom crackled to life, cutting through the chatter like a knife. "Attention students and staff," the voice announced, its usual cheer gone, replaced by an unsettling sternness. "We are now in a code red lockdown. This is not a drill." My heart lurched. Not a drill? Around me, eyes wide with confusion met mine, seeking an explanation I couldn't provide. Our teacher moved quickly, her hands locking the door with practiced calm, though her eyes betrayed her fear. We all knew what to do. Lights off, out of sight, silent. Time crawled by, each minute stretching into an eternity, marked only by the sound of our collective breaths. My mind raced with terrifying possibilities, the unknown threat beyond our door casting a long shadow over us. I pulled out my phone, the screen lighting up with a barrage of messages, rumors, questions, the digital manifestation of the panic that had taken hold of the classroom. Without warning, a knock shattered the silence. Sharp and commanding. The door swung open to reveal a police officer, his face etched with gravity. "Follow me," he instructed, and we obeyed, a single file of students stepping into the eerily quiet hallway. The school felt like a shell of itself, its once vibrant life now replaced by a suffocating stillness. As we were escorted outside, I couldn't escape the feeling that everything had irrevocably changed. The world seemed different now, tainted with a darker shade. My parents were there to meet me, their faces a complex tapestry of relief and grief. We drove home in silence, the car radio recounting the events that had unfolded at Lincoln High. A student, a gun, lives irrevocably altered in mere moments. That evening, I stood among a sea of people at a candlelight vigil, the community united in silent mourning. The flickering flames reflected in the tear-streaked faces around me, and I realized that this gathering of souls, was the true essence of Lincoln High. Not the building, not the classrooms, but the people who filled them with life. As the crowd thinned, I remained, the weight of the day pressing down on me. I knew that the memories of this day would linger, a haunting reminder of life's fragility and the enduring strength of community. So to anyone who ever plans on doing anything like this, I beg you, please don't.